there's a lot of like struggles and things going on. Real life started to kick in. You know, I felt lost at the time. I was like, damn, I don't like know what to do.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, you know, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, you know, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. You know, having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. You know, but these guys are literally taking, you know, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, you know, as they're protecting our lives, you know, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, you know, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, so this is going to be a fun episode. I'm bringing you on Keon Torres, and Keon's got an awesome story of growing up in Harlem and pushing through life, and right on the verge of where he didn't think it was all going to work, life just broke loose for him, and he's seeing some great success from his albums out in the hip-hop market to the commercial he's in on TV, and he's got some ambitious goals, so I'm really hope you enjoy this episode. Enjoy his story. It's going to be a good one. All right, guys, so today should be a fun episode. I'm bringing on Keon Torres and let him talk about his story and journey. This is fun. It'll be the first time I have a hip-hop artist on the show and let him talk about what he does. So, being a country boy, I'm sure I'm going to make fun of it a little bit, so it should be a fun, interesting conversation. So, Keon, brother, welcome to the show, man. Tell us your story. Tell us your journey, bud.
Thank you, man. My name is Keon Torres. I'm a 26-year-old born and raised in New York City. I'm a hip-hop artist, actor, model, videographer, photographer. I'm a Renaissance man, do a lot of things. I hustle my way to where I'm at right now. Didn't have like an easy life. I wasn't privileged. I grew up in Harlem, born and raised in Harlem, and, it was tough. It was a struggle. Had a single mother who I didn't really get along with at the time. We're good now, but like at the time we didn't get along since she had me at a young age. And I was like raised by my grandmother, who used to be a former drug addict, but like when I was born, like she cleaned herself up and she taught me a lot, to stay away from drugs and all that. And it was just like a really surreal life I had, but I'm fortunate enough to be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that life.
Man, it sounds like you're into all kinds of things. I want to dabble in a little bit of it all. But did you pretty much just raise your hand and say, whatever you got, I'm the guy for it? I mean, because you're a hip-hop artist, you're an actor, all these things you're into. How in the hell did you get into all that, especially coming from Harlem, which I've actually been to when I was in the Marine Corps. I got some buddies that live up in the Jersey area. So we went through all of that because I wanted to experience and see it all. So how did you pull yourself out of the roots of Harlem into finding yourself in this world?
So I started with hip hop first. I was always into hip hop when I was in middle school. At first, I just did it for fun in 8th grade with with a friend of mine, and we just like listened to a lot of like hip hop songs at the time. Like I was a huge Eminem fan, Nas and Pac, and it's just like, especially Eminem, like I really like related to his like.
This makes me laugh a little bit because you said Eminem and Kid Rock. You just named the two white rappers, out there.
Yeah, I mean also. Hip hop fan. Yeah. It's totally weird, but I was like really heavily into their music in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And just like, I felt like they were different and they just didn't give a fuck. And I was like, that's my, yeah, exactly. And that's like exactly how my personality is. I'm a very carefree, like lifestyle guy. So, but then I also like gravitated to like Nas and Tupac, who were like, activists, conscious, and just like keeping it, real. So I totally gravitated to that. So I definitely got inspired and I was like, hey, if they can do it, I feel like I can do it as well. And that's when I started really taking it serious. And I started to see people like 50 Cent and Jay-Z who were street hustlers and they made themselves self-made entrepreneur millionaires. Yeah,
they straight up busted their ass and changed the game of how hip-hop was, especially there in their time. It was pretty impressive.
Exactly. So, as time went on, like after 8th grade, once I started to get into high school, I was like a huge high school nerd, honor roll student who eventually became a high school dropout, which is crazy.
How does that happen? How do you go from the hip hop kid that's, acing grades to a dropout?
It's because at the time it was a lot going on. I was with my high school girlfriend at the time and she was like a total like punk rock nerd. And funny story is all the teachers like loved her, but all the teachers like hated me because I was such a smart ass and I was trying to like smart all the teachers. I remember this one time I was in earth science class and I was like, how do you know we really went to space? Were you there? Was I there? Were we all there?
And every teacher loves when you start questioning the shit they're teaching, so.
Exactly. So I always liked doing that, and I always used to just not go to lunch. I used to just go to the library and read the weirdest fucking books. Like I used to read conspiracy theory books based on like aliens, Freemasons. Yeah. Even my librarian was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I'm just into this shit."
Now tell me you got like this complete conspiracy theory rap of some sort where you bring in all that world into some sort of free flowing, song. I think that would be hilarious.
No, that would be hilarious. Like, yeah, I'll probably eventually get to that. but back to my high school story. So yeah, I was against like teachers and they were always on my ass about, you think you're so smart. So eventually I was like, fuck all y'all. And that's what happens when I broke up with my ex-girlfriend. As soon as I broke up with her, then they really started to be like against me. They saw me as a bad kid. So I was like, fuck this. I'm leaving. I never went back to high school, and that's when I started really going to the studio, started recording my music, and then I also had like friends in high school at the time who also wanted to do the same thing. So we just like started like cutting like class and just going to the studio and started.
Dude, I totally get it. I mean, I didn't drop out of high school, but literally, dude, my teachers would look at me and say, "Dude, we're passing you because we don't want you back next year." Whether it was for the fighting in high school or being the smart ass. So I totally get it. So you drop out of high school, you start hitting studios with your buddies. Where'd that take you?
So at the time, I was still finding myself as an artist. I was still like, hey, who am I as an artist? what direction do I want to go? So I was just basically freestyling, like rapping on like, you know, famous people's beats. Like I didn't get to my original music yet until I hit like around 20 years old. So as time went on, there was a lot of stuff going on. I started beefing with the friends I used to go to the studio with. We started to have a fallout. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, I started dealing with different types of women as I got older. And that by itself is a story on its own for me to rap about. Because that's what some of my music is based on, like, you know, encounters of women I dealt with, people who I thought were my friends, not, you know, not betraying me, but were us just having a big fallout and them not understanding who I am. And like,
dude, everybody knows the best stories come from the real shit. The stuff you go through, that's what people gravitate to, whether it's in stories or song, man. Solid.
Yeah, exactly. And then as time went on, that's when I started finding open mics and I started performing. And then, you know, while I was doing that, that's when I ran into who I work with now as my DJ and my recording engineer, who I still work with till this day. And I've been working with them since I was 17, 18 years old.
Nice.
As, you know, as time went on, I started doing open mics and eventually I started getting booked for like legit shows. And that's when I started to like really going in with original music. And that's when I started like working with my engineer who I work with till this day. We started recording like original songs. My DJ produces beats as well. So we started really going in with original music. And then my DJ and we started getting booked for shows around the tri-state area. And yeah, it all like continues from there.
Nice.
And then, yeah. So like now going like transitioning to the acting thing, I was with my last ex-girlfriend at the time, my adult ex-girlfriend. You know, who,
I sense a theme here. I'm just saying, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme. How I met her at an open mic. And then at the time I was staying with my grandma in Harlem, who, you know, eventually we was like staying with a roommate who unfortunately passed away and he didn't put us on the lease. So that by itself was like, oh shit, what we're going to do? Like my grandma and I like started freaking out. And then my last ex-girlfriend at the time, she was like, you know what, you can stay with me in Jersey because she's from Jersey. And, you know, I stayed with her and then my grandmother eventually ended up going to my mom's house, like staying there. So as that is going on, I'm like, oh shit, like there's a lot of like struggles and things going on. Like real life started to kick in. You know, I felt lost at the time. I was like, damn, I don't like know what to do. But as time went on, I was like, you know what? I got to pick myself up and just like keep hustling, keep making music. I'm on this path for a reason. And I believe this life has a lot of ups and downs and you just have to balance it out, really.
Right.
So,
all the good makings for a damn good song, you know, in your future when you write the damn thing.
Exactly. And that, you know, what inspired me to create my first album that's out now called 1412. And basically I explained everything on that album from teenage to adulthood, all that happened in my life during that time period. So during that, so I started, you know, I was like with my last ex-girlfriend from like 4 years now. Like, you know, we recently just broke up 4 months ago. So as that like happened, you know, I'm telling her, hey, I'm going to find ways to hustle. Like I never want to work a regular job. I want to do music for my career and I'm going to find ways to make money. So, you know, during that relationship, you know, I started busking on the subway with a friend of mine who plays guitar, who also sings too. So he started singing and playing guitar and I just started rapping on the train and we started to make a lot of good money.
Okay, so walk me through that. So what kind of genre? Is it rock and rap combined? I mean, is it what?
I say more experimental. It's not really rock. Own thing, which I you know, I always want to be original. I want to make my own sound. I never want to try to sound like anybody else. Like I try to, like as much as Eminem inspires me, I don't want to sound like Eminem. I want to sound like Keon Torres.
Nice, dude. Nice. That's awesome. So you guys start jamming on the subway.
So as, you know, I started making good money, like to pay half my rent with my ex-girlfriend who I'm living with. Cause then after that, we eventually like moved back to New York from Jersey. And then her and I started living together. So, you know, she starts getting on my ass like, oh, you know, you got to find like more ways to make money. Like, you know, you're paying half the rent, but you know, it's not compared to what I'm making. Cause she was a high school teacher. So I was like, all right, don't worry. I'm going to like start looking into this acting thing. So as I'm starting to look at in this acting thing, I'm starting to find like a lot of opportunities. It's like, oh shit, I found this gig for 50 Cent. He had a show on BET called 50 Central and his people reached out to me like, hey, do you have anybody to prank? And so I eventually ended up pranking my ex-girlfriend at the time, which TV, which is awesome, and we got paid for that. So I was like, you know what? If that worked, let me continue to see what else I can find. So as I continued to do my, casting research, I eventually stumbled on to Truth, which is an anti-tobacco commercial. Right. And they reached out to me and they wanted to hear my story, like, hey, what's your history with cigarettes? And I told them straight up, my grandmother used to be a heavy chain smoker and she almost died from emphysema. So they really liked that story and they came my way in New York and they said, hey, we really want to interview you. So I'm thinking, all right, they're going to interview me and, I don't know if it's going to get picked up or not. So they started, they did the whole interview thing. They brought their production team. So I was like, all right, cool. They paid me for that day. So I was like, all right, cool. Later, this happened this year, early January. Hey, we got picked up for the Grammys and Super Bowl, and we're going to air this commercial. I was like, oh, shit. So they signed me under a SAG contract, which is Screen Actors Guild for people who don't know. And they signed me under that contract. They're like, hey, you have a sequel, and, we're going to pay you such and such amount of money. I don't know how much I was going to make, but my ex-girlfriend and I started to argue about financial issues. So she was like, you got to figure something out or you have to leave. So I was like, oh shit. So eventually she got fed up. She broke up with me. And the next day I get my commercial checks, which was the most amount of money I've ever seen in my life. And at that point, I did not really care we broke up. I was like, you know what? I'm out of here. And now I live downtown Manhattan where, all the nice, wealthy people.
I love this. Dude, I'm telling you, you've got a awesome song in there about how breaking the news changed my life, That's awesome. So you literally find through a happenstance, to get in these commercials and doing research and everything else. And because of some family history, find this whole commercial, and I've seen the Truth commercials, they're pretty solid.
Thank you, man.
I recently had a father-in-law passed away from basically emphysema for smoking for almost 60 years. It's crazy. As part of his journey. So what's next on the horizon? Is acting going to be the full-time thing? Is rap going to be the whole-time thing? Or your music career? What is it?
I feel like since I feel like I can really multitask, I feel like everything's a full-time thing. Like whatever, comes to the table, I'm just going to do it. For example, yesterday I was on set. I was just doing background work for Ray Donovan show on Showtime, and I was like, you know what? After this, I'm going to go straight to my DJ's house and we're going to edit my music video that I'm working and shooting as well. So I'm just like, I can just do 2 things at once or 3 things at once. I just like keep flowing, and whatever comes my way, I feel like it's the universe's way, like, hey, you're on the right path. Because teachers told me I would be either a bum on the street or just working in McDonald's.
That's so awesome, because I love it when people are told that they ain't amount to shit in life, because I usually find that that's rocket fuel for them to go, you know what, fuck you and watch when I'm about to go off. That's solid as hell. One, I want to be an extra in one of your videos, so I want to be
if in New York, yeah, man. Or if you're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm ever in Texas, I'll definitely give you a hit up.
That's awesome. One of the other guys I just had on the show is fixing to have his first feature film come out called Rumors from Ground Control. And then he keeps telling me that he's going to get me in to be an extra as he comes to the Dallas area. I'm going to get into this whole acting career thing, but all through the backdoor channels as I continue to go on, So you got one album out now, right?
Yeah. And I'm working on my second one right now.
And what's the theme of the second album?
So it's gonna be like really a more of a mature album, like since I'm like 26 now, and I'm basically like telling more of my adult life and my views on things, especially the way the country's going. So I'm conscious, and then I'll also have fun songs that people can party to. It's like it's very versatile. You get a little bit of everything. It's just not like, oh, it's very conscious, or, oh, it's really like ratchet turn up music. No, like I give you everything. I give you fun songs. I give you songs to really think about, and just my views on the world today that we live in.
Nice. And all the songs are written by you?
Yeah, all written by me. And I worked with a couple of different producers.
Nice, dude. How do you keep a team like that together with your DJ, with your man? How do you keep that all together? Because
everybody's got their own dreams and passions. I mean, that's no easy task.
I feel like I'm really fortunate enough to have the right people. Like my DJ, I knew since I was 16, and same thing with my studio engineer. Like I knew him since I was a kid, and I just like worked with them all these years, and we just built that chemistry up, and they really like believe in what I do, and they see how much I grew as not only an artist but as an entertainer overall, and they're really 100% supportive like behind what I do. So I guess that's it.
No, that's awesome. And you've got a pretty wicked social media game going on too, don't you?
Yeah. So I'm guessing that's from all because one of my songs called Socialize, that's like my most streamed song. I'm guessing a lot of people are digging that. And also the True commercial helped a lot too.
Right. Gives you more and more exposure along the way. You know, as you continue on this journey, I mean, I jokingly say you found success from all these ex-girlfriends, you know, help transform the trajectory of where you're going. Where do you think you're going to end up with all this?
My ultimate, like, end game goal, well, not end game because I want to continue. Like, I really just want to be a successful entrepreneur. Like, I want to start my own business. I eventually want to get into real estate soon and just, you know, I want to, like, fix things the way, because New York is a very expensive city, and I just feel like I want to make it fair for people who can't really afford, and I just help build better neighborhoods for the less fortunate and make sure, you know, they have a place. Homelessness is really crazy in New York City, and I just want to give at least somewhat of what I can do to help. And then I also, you know, I want to end up living in Tokyo, Japan one day. That's like a dream of mine. I want to live in Tokyo.
That's interesting. Why Tokyo?
I just love the Japanese culture. Like, I'm a huge anime fan. I love, like, Japanese pro wrestling. I'm a huge New Japan guy. And I just love the culture. I love the people. They're really respectful. It's very clean. Especially Tokyo is, like, more of an advanced New York. It's so better, and I just, like, love it.
Don't let New York hear that.
Yeah. No, a lot of people in New York, they already know how I feel about Japan. And, you know, people get it. I just love it. Like, my first album, Bass, all thing with the title 1412, I got that from a Japanese anime, and I just like love Japan, and I just want to like live there one day and just like spend my life, the rest of my life there, and I just, you know, and I just want to contribute to, you know, I want to help other artists. I want to like eventually make my own movies instead of just acting. You know, I just want to do a lot. Like, I'm not gonna stop. I just want to continue on, you know, see where my life takes me and just flow.
Where do you think all these big ambitions came from? Did you think it came from a tough upbringing, or? Yeah,
I definitely believe it came from a tough upbringing. I feel like, you know, I'm definitely the most successful person in my family, so I want to show, like, hey, you know, more people that like, you know, who are like me that grew up in a tough situation, like, hey, if I can do it, you can do it as well. I want to make it possible for not just myself, but for anybody who's going through the struggle right now.
Yeah, but, you know, I know you've got the people that are looking at you, you know, even before you got to this point, that are like, dude, what the hell are you doing with your life? You know, grow up, all this. How'd you handle all that?
By just not giving a fuck. That's just my mentality. I always tell people I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm just going to do me, and if you don't like it, you don't have to, like, pay attention or be in my life. Like, I'm just going to, like, I'm really stubborn. That's a good thing. Like, I'm very stubborn, so it's really hard to convince me, like, hey, you need to get a regular job. You need to go back to school. I'm like, nah, because if I would have done that, I would have probably committed suicide already.
But you can't see yourself working behind a desk, you know, the 8 to 5 and, you know.
No, unless I'm the boss of the company.
That's so awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really stubborn, which I feel like it helped, you know, my mentality to prosper and just keep going for what I'm doing. And I always tell people, like, hey, happiness is number one. You know, money is good too, but you gotta value your happiness, because if you're not happy, what's the point of living?
Hell yeah. Where do you think the need to help the homeless came from? Is that just something?
Yeah, because my grandmother eventually like got in, you know, she wanted to find a place, like her own place to live, like she wanted to like stop living with my mom, so she eventually, unfortunately, like started living in a shelter, and she even told me, like, hey, worry about yourself, don't worry about me, because I wanted to help my grandmother, but, you know, she's tough, you know, she has that old school mentality, like, hey, I want to be independent, worry about you. She's like very proud of me and happy what I'm doing. She's like, you know, she's like, I'm going to get everything straightened out on my own. And I keep telling her, like, let me help you. But my grandma's really a tough, stubborn old woman, so she wants to do everything on her own. And, luckily she's about to, like, get a place, so, like, I'm really grateful for that. But, I just, like, seeing what she went through, I want to help other people who are in her situation get out of that.
Right. What would you tell somebody who's in the high school game, getting harassed by their teachers, getting harassed, everything else, and they're like, I just want to dump all this, go jump in and start, a career in music? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I never recommend anybody to drop out of high school because, especially if you don't have, like, cause everybody's different. Like me, like, I knew I was going to, like, persevere and find ways to get out of that. But you have to have that mentality. You have to have, yeah, you're going to drop out of school, but you got to work fucking like 50 times harder than the regular Joe. And I always tell, like, kids, like, I worked at after school programs, I taught, like, kids how to perform and not have stage fright. So I always tell them, like, do what you got to do. If you're not happy, you just got to figure out something that works for you. I'm not saying drop out, but, like, you got to find ways. If you want to do what you love, you got to, like, work your ass off. Not only work your ass off, you got to work smart.
And then the opposite side of that, what would you tell the people that are 20, 30 years your senior, like, you got to go to college to find success? What would you say to them?
A lot of people I know that went to college are in student loan debt. Like, the only debt I had was credit card debt, which I got out of. So it's just, it's crazy. I feel like, college doesn't really help people pursue, like, what they want to do truly. And I feel like they just really need to, like, find other ways to, like, make money, make a brand, they just got to really find what they love and just pursue it.
That's so awesome. Man, I'm just fascinated by you, the 22-year-old guy who kind of gave the traditional method of life the finger and said, I'm just going to carve my own path along the way. Besides your grandmother, who else is cheering you on as part of this process?
My mother and I, like, started building our relationship better. Before, it was, like, a really bad relationship. There was a point where we didn't even talk for, like, 3 years. And her and I, relationship, she's proud of me of what I'm doing. So our relationship definitely got better, especially after my last ex-girlfriend broke up with me. My mom was really, like, upset behind that because, she felt like, I was really loyal and committed to my last ex. So, and then, plus, here's another part of my story. Like, I was diagnosed, like, 3 years ago with ulcerative colitis. Oh, that's another thing I want to, like, find, like, help, a real charitable cause for people with ulcerative colitis. It's like a chronic disease for the immune system. Like, people can't really digest well. And it's another thing I want to really help with. And that's another thing people thought I was going to fall on my ass soon as I was, like, hospitalized. I was hospitalized twice in 2 years. I was hospitalized in 2015 and 2016. So that's when I was really going through the motions, like, oh shit, where am I going to end up? But, like, fortunately enough, I'm healthier than ever. I started, like, following, like, the gluten-free diet. I started, like, eating more clean before I was eating, like, really shitty. So that's another thing I want to contribute to. People with ulcerative colitis, I want to find, like, a cure for that because people have that for life. And people don't realize how, like, crazy that chronic disease is. Some people have it way worse than me, and they have, like, even have, like, a patch for them to use the bathroom and stuff. It's, like, really sad, and I want to contribute to that as well and, like, find a cure for that and find a cure for, like, other diseases as well that have nothing to do with me because I really feel there's, like, a cure for everything. It's just they don't want to tell us.
I can't necessarily agree with that thought process. Pharma controls way too much. So you're going to have to go big as hell to pull off all these endeavors, from helping the homeless to living in Japan to helping with colitis, all this shit. How do you know you're going to be able to pull it all off?
Hey, I was supposed to be, especially when I was diagnosed with that ulcerative colitis. Like, at first, when I was hospitalized, I had no idea what the hell was wrong with me. Like, I was really ill. The doctor even told me, because I was in Jersey when I was diagnosed with it, but they didn't know what it was. So I came back to New York, and they found out, like, hey, you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. You could have died if you didn't come here to us, because, like, Jersey hospitals just, like, sent me home. Like, oh, you're fine. You just have, like, a stomach ache. And that wasn't the case. Like, I kept feeling sick and fatigued. I felt like I was literally dying. And as soon as I came back to New York and the doctor told me what I was diagnosed with, he was like straight up like, you could have died if you didn't see us right away. So, hey, I'm here for a reason, and I'm guessing like I came this far, and if I stop now, it would be just stupid. And I'm here to like have a purpose in life to help not only myself but help others and just like change the face of the world, especially because I see the world different from everybody else. I have my own beliefs. I have my own views on everything. I'm a very unique individual, and I don't like see the world like how everybody else sees it, especially society. So I feel like I can like make a huge impact on the world, and I came this far, and nothing's gonna stop me.
Nice, dude. I love that. Do you think people need to get a punch in the face like you did with the colitis to figure out how to push through and go after life?
No, I feel like, everybody has their own way of figuring out things. I feel like, it only takes that one spark to push yourself. And it's sad. I've seen a lot of people who are unmotivated, especially where I'm from. There's a lot of people who just like are in the same position they were at like 5 years, 10 years ago. And I always tell them like, yo, you want to get out of that. You want to push it. You got to find something that's going to make you push yourself, and it's very sad. Excuse me. There's a lot of people that are unmotivated, and I want to change that. And I feel like once I reach another level of success, I want people I grew up with especially to see that like, hey, if you can do it, I can do it as well, because we came from the same environment.
I'm a firm believer that motivation is an action, not a feeling, right? Because you can't ever get motivated and then do. You've got to go do, then motivation kicks in. How do you find your drive? I mean, I'm fascinated by a young 26-year-old guy that's actually tackling life and sounds like doing a badass job. How do you find that drive consistently?
It's just like, one, not caring. I love that carefree lifestyle, and I don't care what people like tell me how to do it. You should do this, you should do that. I just don't care, and I just go with my flow. I take advice from people who reach success, but I don't take advice from amateurs. So I just go with the flow, and I feel like, hey, I made it this far. I just got to keep going, and nothing and no one can stop me.
Dude, that's so awesome, dude. And I gotta tell you, bud, I really enjoyed having you on the show. You've got one hell of a story, and I really hope you keep grinding it out to chase those dreams of yours, because they're freaking awesome.
Always.
And they're monstrous. How do people find your music? How do they find your commercials? How do they find out more about you?
I'm not hard to find. Keon Torres, KeonTorres, on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And then my music, you can find me on iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon. Wherever you buy or stream music, all my music is there. Like I said, I'm not hard to find. Yeah, and my album's at 1412 is out now. I have 2 new singles out now. One is called We Are, and the other one's called Everybody Else. I'm also on YouTube. I have a lot of music videos on there. And yeah, my next album is called A Genius in Disguise, and that's coming really soon.
And badass, and we'll put links to all of those in the show notes so everybody can get quick access to us. So here's how I like to wrap up every show, dude, and I really appreciate you being on here, is if you could leave my audience with a phrase, a quote, a saying, something they could carry with them on their journey, especially if they're stacked up against it and they're trying to figure out how to chase their dreams and destiny, what would you say to them?
I would say make the impossible possible. Realistic verbalize.
Nice, dude. Love it, love it, love it. Man, dude, Keon, seriously, thank you so much for being on the show, brother, and sharing your journey with us, man. It's kick-ass. Keep running, brother.
Thank you so much, man. You got to have me again.
I will. All right.
All right, man. Take care. Peace.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done right now."